Welcome, everyone. I am Rachel Podber, the Education Programs Manager at Holocaust Museum LA, the first and oldest Holocaust museum in the United States, founded by survivors. We were founded in 1961 by survivors who wanted to create a safe place to display their precious artifacts, to remember their family members and loved ones who had perished, and to educate future generations on the important lessons of the Holocaust. Today, the museum continues to provide free Holocaust education to students from across Los Angeles, the United States, and the world, fulfilling the mission of our founders to commemorate, educate, and inspire. Thank you so much for joining us for today's program, Desayuno with Linda Sendowski, a Sephardic cooking demonstration. Linda Capeloto Sendowski, author of Sephardic Baking from Nona and More Favorites, grew up in Seattle, where Sephardic cuisine was her birthright, learning recipes passed down from her mother and grandmother. A self-taught cook, Linda uses her knack for writing recipes to preserve and connect with her heritage, most recently as a contributor to the Sephardic Heritage Cookbook. In this virtual cooking demonstration, Linda will break down one of her favorite recipes for borekas, a savory pastry. This program is part of our Sephardic and Mizrahi Stories series, exploring Sephardic and Mizrahi culture, history, and experiences. We are so pleased to have Linda here with us today. Before we get started, please note that you are welcome to ask questions throughout today's program. You can ask a question by typing it into the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom window. It's now my pleasure to introduce Linda Sendowski.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm using my phone to connect through Zoom to conduct the class. And so my phone's kind of at an angle. And as you can see, I have a couple of plates here in front of me. Rachel gave me a very nice introduction. Thank you. So I moved to Los Angeles in 1976. And before that, I grew up in Seattle. My parents were born in Seattle, but on both sides, my grandparents came from, my father's side came from the island of Rhodos, and my mother's side came from the mainland of Turkey. So this is our kind of food, and we ate it, we breathed it, we enjoyed making it, and we were taught from when we were little girls how to form the borekas and the other desayuno. The word desayuno comes from the Spanish desayunar, which means to eat breakfast. And typically this was served as the Shabbat after synagogue services breakfast. So I'm going to hold up these plates now, and hopefully you can kind of see what's on it. These are the borekas that we're going to make today. This is called a bulema or a boyu, and it is spinach filled, kind of like a spanakopita sort of flavor. And then typically fruit was eaten. This also accompanied all those kind of meals: the hard-boiled eggs or huevos haminados, the fried fish, and sometimes it was other kinds of fish, maybe fish like a salmon in tomato sauce, or maybe something plaki with vegetables roasted in the oven. And then a typical Greek salad with the pepperoncinis and the olives, cucumbers, tomatoes, like that. So I'm going to move these, and we will get started right away with making the filling. We're going to make a dough from scratch. My grandmother's dough. Just move these over here. If you'll just be patient 1 second, I'm going to get my potatoes. This is the potato and cheese fill. Okay, we're ready to go here. I start with one big Idaho potato, peel it, and I don't know if you can see inside the pot. I've sliced it, I've boiled it. Now I'm going to mash it up and add cheese and eggs. And I usually make this the night before. You can even make it way ahead and freeze it. In this bowl, I have all kinds of cheese grated up. I have crumbled feta cheese, grated Parmesan, and today I have a mild cheddar cheese. Doesn't sound very Sephardic, but it's really hard to come by. Kaseri or kashkaval, the traditional cheeses that were put in there. And I'll show you how the cheeses look before I grate it. The feta comes packaged like this. This is the Parmigiano Reggiano. And I'm just using this as a good melting sort of viscous sort of cheese that holds the filling all together once you melt it in. So in my home, I keep a kosher kitchen and I only buy kosher cheese. So I don't really feel limited. Pretty much everything is available kosher, but it requires a little effort to get it. So I'm going to dump all this cheese in here. And you will notice that I use a lot more cheese to potato. Some people like theirs more potatoey. So feel free to add more, switch it up. If you'd rather have them more potatoey, that's what some people prefer to do. So I put about 14 ounces of feta cheese, about 8 ounces of the cheddar, and 1 cup of the grated Parmesan to 1 large potato. And then I add in about 3 eggs.
Are there other flavor combinations or filling combinations that are popular?
In addition to this traditional potato and cheese, you can do rice and cheese, you know, like boiled white rice that they mix with cheese. You can also do handrajo, which is roasted eggplant mashed with cheese or without cheese. You can make them dairy or non-dairy. You can do like a ratatouille filling that's cooked way down so it's not liquidy. And again, with cheese or without cheese. People then during the year, there's other holidays that like for Rosh Hashanah, I don't know if you're aware, but Sephardic people do kind of a longer intro into the Rosh Hashanah traditional dinner, more than just the apples and honey. It's almost like a Seder. And there's all these items that we make, and each food is symbolic of things that you hope for during the new year, and they're called the simanim. And one of the simanim is squash. So the traditional way to incorporate squash into that menu is to make a boreka with pumpkin in it. So has a little bit of cinnamon in it and maybe a little bit of brown sugar, and it's not dairy, and it's a pumpkin boreka. Also for Purim, we make a sweet boreka. It has a little sugar in the dough, a little white wine in the dough, and it's filled with nut meats. And after it's baked, you boil it in a honey and lemon syrup. And that goes by the name borequita de muez. You know, borequita means small boreka. And those are served for Purim because you eat a lot of honey, a lot of sweets on Purim. So after you mash this all up, here we have magic. We have one already, which is great. Okay, so now we can make dough. Let me grab all my stuff. This is 4 cups of flour mixed with a teaspoon of salt and I have here 3/4 of a cup of oil. I'll show you what oil I prefer. I usually buy, I like the old Hollywood safflower oil. Fantastic. No taste to it. It's a light oil. Fantastic for baking, fantastic for frying. Or you can, if you want to go more organic, you can do like this, the Spectrum sunflower oil, or they make safflower as well. And I like those oils because they don't impart any taste to your baking, and they're a little more natural. Okay, so hold on one sec. I'm going to get some ice cubes. Okay, I'm back. I have here some ice water, and I'm going to mix that into my oil. I'm going to measure 1 cup of ice water. And then really combine that. I'm trying to make sure that what I'm doing is in the in the perimeter of the camera. Okay, and then you just pour this into your flour. I want to say a word about measuring flour. When you measure flour, don't pack it down into the measuring cup. Just scoop your flour, level it off, and that's it. Don't shake it, don't pack it down, because then your measurement will be off and your dough will be stiff. This makes a wonderful pliable dough. I'm just stirring it up with a fork a little bit. So I remember when I was a child, my auntie made the best borekas you ever tasted. Hers were just, they were better than my mom's. I remember that distinctly. And we knew where she hid them. So my cousin and I, we used to go, she had them in a container under the kitchen sink with dish towels on top. And we used to go in there and sneak them because the smell of feta and Parmesan is just intoxicating. And they're crispy. So see, this is my technique. I mix it a little with the fork, and then you just have to get in there with your hands. So I don't know if you have a delicate manicure, or I guess you could put a glove on.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the hallmarks and influences of Sephardic cuisine?
Well, Sephardic cuisine is very, it's an eclectic mix. Typically, like our families, you know, our family oral tradition is that they left Spain. We're not sure what year, but somewhere after 1492. And they traveled down and through the Mediterranean. And they ended up in Turkey or parts of the Ottoman Empire. The Sultan welcomed the Jews with open arms. And so the Jews settled there. There were some Jews already living in those areas. So, and then those communities sort of combined. But they brought with them the tradition. So there is some controversy about whether borekas originated in Turkey or did they originate in Spain? Because in Turkey, they have like street food, every bakery on every corner, and they call it burek, and it's everywhere. But then in Spain, you have empanadas, which look very similar. And the edge that we're going to make on this pastry is called Repogle, which is like a twisted rope edge, and that's a Spanish word. And that is the same word that is used for the edge on empanadas. And I can remember when I was a little girl, my mother called the edge Repogle. So did the Jews bring their Spanish food with them to Turkey? Or was there already something in Turkey, or did it get combined? That's a mystery.
Someone asked, is it okay to use ready-made dough, and will that affect the taste at all? Will it have a different texture?
Yes, I find that ready-made dough is very salty, and it depends. Well, are you talking about pie dough? To use a pie dough, this is kind of a short crust, similar more to a dairy-free pie dough. It's flaky. So I suppose you could use a pie dough and roll it out and cut rounds and do it, but I think it will not quite taste the same. People in Israel use puff pastry, or you can use, there's another little pastry called, they call them Filigas or figildavus, using phyllo dough, where they cut strips of the phyllo dough, and then you fold it back and forth, and you make them triangle shape. I'm sure you've seen those in a box somewhere in a Greek hors d'oeuvres or whatever. But yeah, those people make those. Or like I have one Israeli friend. She says to me, "Why are you bothering that dough? just to get the puff pastry, use that." But this is a different taste, and this is what my grandma made. And this dough is fantastic. You can even make a meat and rice filling called a pastel, which is another Spanish word. And those are fabulous. You can fill those with beef and rice, lamb and rice, and serve those as appetizers at any dinner. And it's really fantastic. So here we go, 2 seconds. We have our dough. It's very soft, it's very pliable. Now what I do is, this amount of dough for me always makes, I divide it into 42 walnut-sized balls. So I'm just gonna divide off a few and start showing you. So you want a little ball like this. I just pinch them off. And my mother taught me this. She's always very organized, and she always wanted everything exactly measured and exactly the outcome the same. And when she divided up the filling or divided up the dough and it came out exact, she was pleased with herself. So can you see what I'm doing here on the counter? I'm pinching off little balls. Okay. This is what I do. I make 4 columns of 5 and then an extra one. And I know that's 21, and 21 fit on my baking sheet. Here's I baked this morning. See, I make 3 columns of 7, and it fits exactly. I already ate this one. It smelled too good when I took it out. So you pinch off the dough. I'll just do a couple more. It's a nice texture. It's soft. And you'll see we're going to make smooth balls out of them, and then we're going to roll them out.
Someone asked, can you freeze these after you've made them?
You can freeze them before you bake them, or you can, if you freeze them before you bake them, freeze them on the cookie sheet, and then when they're hard, put them in bags. Or you can freeze them after you bake them for sure. I always, when I get started baking, I make like multiple recipes, and I make a supply for a few months, for the holidays or whatever. They freeze fantastic. They heat up fantastic. I know I've heard that my daughter-in-law tells me that the puff pastry ones you have to freeze before they're cooked, because puff pastry just doesn't freeze well once it's cooked. Because it's not the same when you heat it up. So I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here. See, this looks kind of rough. So I push in and I push from the bottom with my thumb and I turn it all in like this. I'm trying to show you so you can see. And I make it smooth on the top. Then that's much easier to roll out. It rolls out into a nice circle rather than starting from a lumpy thing like that. And there we go. So, you know, dough, whenever you work with dough, it benefits from resting for a minute. So while I was pinching off the second column, the first column was resting, and then it was ready to be formed into the little balls. And then now it's resting again, and it'll be easier to roll into the circles. Whether it's yeast dough or this kind of dough, they all benefit from just sitting for a second. It allows the gluten strands to relax for a minute, and then they're much more pliable. I like to use all-purpose unbleached flour. My favorite brands are Gold Medal or King Arthur. I find they work great. And some people put more than a teaspoon of salt in the dough, but I don't like it that salty. I want to taste the cheese. Okay, so here we go. Use my big rolling pin. I tell my husband he has to behave. Now I'm going to just roll it out a little bit. So when you roll it out, try not to roll over the edges. Show you better. So here's your little ball. Press down in the center and just go a little bit. And I don't know if you can see this, but mine is, it still has a ridge kind of around the edge. Don't roll over the edge because then the edge gets very thin. And then go the other direction. And then you have a nice little piece of rolled out pastry. So again, what I do in my kind of compulsive, organized way is I roll them all out, and then I portion out the filling, and then it all comes out good in the end. You know, if you have a little less filling, a little more filling, if they're all rolled out, ready to go, you have a chance to even everything out. Any more questions?
Can you use spinach in these, or would it make the filling too watery?
Well, typically the spinach filling, spinach with feta cheese, or you can use Swiss chard or beet greens or whatever kind of greens you have. But typically that is a different kind of dough. We make a yeast dough that is stretched really, really paper thin, almost like a phyllo. And then you put the spinach in there and it's rolled up. It's like you'll start with a little piece of dough about that big, and you stretch it out into a very large rectangle, and then you put your chopped spinach with your feta cheese and you roll it like that into a log, and then you coil the log. So I don't typically put spinach in this. The traditional is different. It's a different dough for the spinach. And yeah, the spinach, somebody asked me one time if you could use frozen spinach. I find it liquidy and kind of too concentrated. So I buy fresh spinach, you know, comes all pre-washed now. It's not like when our mothers were making it and you had to wash the spinach and it was a whole production to get it dry. And chop that. It doesn't take very long to chop. you need a good cutting board and also a very sharp knife. And then there's no egg in that filling. It's just basically feta cheese and the Parmesan. Okay, so now we have all these cute little circles. And I'm gonna portion this out here. I just use a little teaspoon and make a little mound in the center of each one. Now I made this filling last night, so it refrigerated and got good and stiff.
Do you always refrigerate the filling before you put it into the dough?
I find it easier to work with, and also, you know, there's only so many hours in a day. So if you're going to make the filling, and then you're going to make the dough, and then you're going to bake them, your whole day is going to be. I mean, you could do it, not a problem. But I find that I don't have such a long stretch of time. So I like to make the filling the day before, and then, you know, I pull myself up a stool here at the counter, and I make the dough and do it. So there we go. Push this stuff back here. And then get my baking sheet ready. Let me see my baking sheet. I like to line it with parchment paper. I find that when the pan is lined with parchment paper, you don't waste so much water and energy trying to scrub off the grease. These are greasy a little bit. Okay, so here's the first one. Grab it, close it in half, pinch it around. So see, you have your little half moon, and then starting at this corner, I'm going to get as close as I can to the camera here. You pull it and you pinch it. And there you have a little boreka. And that edge is called Repogle. It looks like
kind of folded over on itself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'll do some more. So here we took another one. So close it. And make sure when you close it that you just have dough here. You don't want to get any filling in between the little edge of the dough, because then it doesn't shut tight. Okay, so starting here at this edge, pull that edge and then turn it, and pull and turn it, pull. Don't pull too much, just so you have enough to grab with your fingers, and you turn. So it takes a little practice, but as long as it's sealed, they will bake up beautifully, and no one will know the difference if you did a perfect Repogle or not. Okay. Edge, fold it, fold it, fold it, fold it. And then see, I start making my 3 columns. I bake 3 columns of 7 or 21. And so I make 2 pans for every batch of dough. Now, if for some reason you're making them smaller, you could easily bake 2 pans of 24, make 48 in total. See, this dough is really easy to work with. Let's see if I can turn my hands better so you can see. Okay, so here we go. Is that right in front of the? Okay, so we're gonna close it, close it.
We have a question about if there are different styles of boreka edges.
Different styles of boreka.
The edges, or are they all the folding?
I suppose some people use fork tines and do it easier. Or my mother showed me one time, if you're having a difficult time with the edge, you could, can you see?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you could just fold it like this and make a triangle like that. No edge required, and it won't be the pretty edge, but that works fine. There, try to get it into the camera frame. Do you see what I did?
Mm-hmm. That one looks like it would be a good shape for Purim.
Oh yeah, you could do that. Kind of similar to a Hamantash shape. Yeah, you could most definitely do that. Now, the Syrian Jews make something very similar, and they call it sambusak. And sambusak, there is no potato in the filling. There is only cheese and egg. And I'll tell you what they do. They use a ravioli cutter. They fold it in half. They use the ravioli cutter to trim the edge and seal it. And they come out perfectly. And those are made with a butter dough. That's a class for another day. A little bit different. But they use a tortilla press to flatten the little walnut balls. So it takes a little practice to make sure you get the thickness correct, the consistent. And then they use a ravioli cutter.
And someone asked about the recipe, which will be emailed out to everyone who's watching today.
Yeah, right.
It'll be emailed out after the end of the program.
Okay, terrific.
And then someone asked, is this your favorite filling, or do you have a different filling that's your favorite?
This is my favorite. My favorite. As I mentioned before, you could also do roasted eggplant. See, if you don't want to hold it in your hand,
Well, I think you are muted, Linda.
I'll show you how to, we paint with egg and put a little grated parm on top, and into the oven it goes. I mean, really you can be as creative as you like, but I remember when I was younger, I had a hard time doing the rope small. So feel free to, pull it out more, and you could do it a little more exaggerated. Okay, so here is on the top, we put the beaten egg. Highly recommend the silicone brushes. I don't know if you've seen these. I mean, you can use your regular old brush, but these just make it so easy. And they go in the dishwasher. So you paint each one like that. And then the parm all grated up, ready to go. Put a little pinch with your fingers on each one. Oh, that parm smells so good. And they go into a 400-degree oven. I'll walk over here too. They bake for about 17 minutes. I'm going to put my little timer on here. And then I wanted to show you one more thing. So these are the ones I baked earlier. And you can see they're nice on the bottom. And sometimes a little bit of potato oozes out, but that's okay. It tastes good. And let's cut it and open and see how it looks. And there you go. You can see the filling is kind of puffs up in there, and they're crispy and they're kind of creamy-ish in the middle, and they have a really intense cheesy taste to them, and they're really good. Delicious. Let me cut open the spinach one to show you.
Can you eat the borekas hot or cold, or do you recommend heating them up?
Cold. They're better warmed up. They get crispy, or fresh out of the oven, or freshly baked. Yeah, freshly baked, or from the freezer, and you warm them up like in a 300-degree oven for maybe like 10 minutes once they've defrosted, and they get all crispy, wonderful again. So here's the other dough I was talking about. Somebody asked about spinach. So this is a yeast dough that I make and stretch it very, very thin and do like a coil. We can demonstrate with a piece of paper towel or something. Here we go. Okay. So imagine that this piece of paper towel is your dough that you've stretched out, almost transparent, just thin, thin, thin. And what you do is you put your little filling down the center, down a line down like this, and then you take it and you roll it like this. So you have a column, and then you coil it like a bird's nest. And again, sprinkle those with Parmesan cheese and bake them. And that's what this is. So, any more questions?
Can you tell us a little bit about your cookbook and what inspired you to write it?
Sure. Oh, yes. And then I also wanted to say something about the Holocaust. Okay, so I started writing my cookbook. Well, when did I publish it? In 2009 or 10. We grew up with these recipes, but you know, our grandmas didn't write stuff down. There wasn't a measured, how do I do this? How much flour? How much, what's the ratio, the oil to the water? You know, how can I make it turn out consistently every time? Because these are really, really, truly everybody's favorite. So I started asking questions. I found from my own mother, my memories from my Nona, my grandma, and I went to a lot of people's homes, and I ingratiated myself and I asked people, and a lot of wonderful older ladies were so nice to let me measure and see, and I networked with people, and I wanted to do you know, our Sephardic baking, which I think is a big culinary contribution to the food world. So that was that. I wrote all those recipes, and I could probably edit it at this point, you know, fix up some of the writing or something, and then I self-published. I found that it was too difficult to jump through all the hoops I had to actually get a publisher and everything. So I self-published and I put the book out there. It's done pretty well. Then I at the same time, I also wrote a food blog, and I have a food blog called The Global Jewish Kitchen. And then the blog portion within that website is called the Boreka Diary. And there must be way over 300 recipes in there with pictures, step by step. You can go and look. It's not monetized at all. It's free. It's open. It wasn't my idea to make money off the project. My idea was to share the culinary tradition with people. And then our temple here in Los Angeles, the Sephardic Temple, Tifereth Israel, we formed a committee and we wanted to publish a cookbook. There was an original cookbook from the temple many, many years ago called Cooking the Sephardic Way. And you know, it still sells today. But the composition of the temple changed over the years. A lot of Mizrahi Jews, a lot of Persian Jews, and we just have this wonderful, eclectic, friendly family of people that belong to that temple. And so us girls formed a committee, and everybody brought their favorite recipes, and it started a lot of the people on a journey like mine to actually write down the recipe. Well, how much of this and how much of this, and how can I tell somebody else so they could reproduce it? So that's a wonderful cookbook. It's called the Sephardic Heritage Cookbook. And it's Ottoman, Mizrahi, and Persian recipes from all kinds of Sephardic people and Mizrahi people. A fantastic book. And then since then, I don't know, I've published, been in a lot of articles, you know, they trot out for the Rosh Hashanah articles and this and that for different publications. Even this year, I think I got, my cousin sent me a thing. Oh, look, they talked about your borekas or your such and such in this magazine. I didn't even know, but it's out there, and not something I ever charged for, but it's worthwhile to bake. And children are crazy for these. Extremely packable. Kids pop them in their mouth. It's an excuse to go to Nona's house, to Grandma's house. Gives you that warm,
Perfect portable snack.
Family, yes, yeah, handheld pocket food. It's the greatest thing there ever was. And I wanted to say that it's such a shame that luckily for me, my family, my dad's family left the island of Rhodos around 1910. And they ended up in Seattle, and there was a wonderful Jewish community up there, Sephardic Jewish community. And I know other people that, didn't leave. Basically, the Nazis came in, and that was the end of the Jewish community on Rhodos. At one point, the island was 25% Jewish. And there's a wonderful synagogue and memorial there, and really something to go see on your travels. Plus, it's just a gorgeous place full of hotels and tourists and fun things to see. And then the community of Salonika and other communities in Greece were also just devastated by the Nazis. And, there were some who escaped, obviously, left before, or there was even Jews who joined the partisan resistance. But they destroyed that community of Salonika as well. 54,000 Jews, and nobody was left. So I think it's really important for us to have our traditions and not just food ones, but you know, it's try and help. The other thing about my blog that's so fun is I have met Capelotos, people who are related to me from all over the world, who could be my fourth cousin, my fifth cousin. They turn up and they send me emails by putting my name out there. When I originally got married, I didn't hyphenate my name. I just was Linda Sendowski. And then when I got into the cookbook thing, I added back in my Capeloto, and it's really afforded me some fabulous connections with people.
I know I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, and I know there's a family of Capelotos there.
Oh yeah, in Atlanta, for sure. Yeah, for sure. So any other questions, anybody?
And does anybody have any questions? You can type them into the chat box or the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. We have a bunch of comments in the chat saying how fantastic this has been, how beautiful the borekas look. A few people said they're getting very hungry watching you bake them.
Oh, me too, me too.
Are there any other favorite Sephardic foods that you have?
Yeah, well, I love the ones with spinach, but there's also, you know, the savory side of things. Like I said before, you can use this same dough and you make them in a triangle shape, and those are filled with meat and rice. So what I do is I start off frying a couple of onions, ground beef, lots of parsley, lots of black pepper, and you make that filling, and then you add, then you put rice, and you put enough water so that the rice steams through, and then the filling is just set. And another one that benefits from a little overnight refrigeration. And then you make them in a triangle shape and bake them. And those you brush with egg, and you put sesame seeds on top. Sephardim like sesame seeds. And they're the same. You can freeze them, baked, unbaked. You can and serve them. They're really good, you know, like along with your, oh, I didn't even show you this. I bake a lot of challah too. I haven't bought a challah in the store. And sometime I'd be happy to teach the challah class. But the pastels are just fantastic, you know, with the salad and stuff, and fantastic way to start the meal. And let's see, what else do I do? I really like the whole, we have a lot of handheld pockety kind of foods. And one of my other favorites is also one of the simanim, one of the traditional symbolic foods that we serve on Rosh Hashanah, and it is called a kufte de prasa. And what that is a leek meatball. You can make them you can make them without meat as well, just with mashed potato. But you know, we clean the leeks and we chop them very fine, and we steam them, and we mix them also with a lot of parsley and ground beef, and then we make little patties, little meatballs, and fry those, and those are unbelievable, fantastic. So I like my little Sephardic starters or derby things, and then I also love some traditional American stuff. I was thinking about how our food is such a mix of the Turkish and the Spanish. Like I was thinking about green beans per se. You know, a big dish or yes, a big dish that we serve a lot is like a green beans with fried onions and tomatoes, like in a sauce kind of. And we call that fasulia. But you can find that dish in Spain. You can find that dish in Turkey. You can find that dish all over the Middle East. everybody eats the green beans with the fried onions and the tomato sauce. And it's interesting, our name for it, fasulia, is Greek. So our food is such a mix, you know, is it Spanish, is it Greek, is it Turkish, is it Jewish, Middle Eastern? It's really a confluence of all kinds of things, as is the Sephardic language Ladino, is also a mix of things.
Someone asked, do you make borekas, the cheese biscuits?
Oh yeah, yeah, and you know what that is? That's this dough, right? And you roll it out and fill it with cheese, you know, lots of Parmesan cheese, or if you have kashkaval, or if you have caseri cheese, and then you roll it up like a pinwheel, roll it up into like a jelly roll style, and to make slices, and then they're little coiled up like pinwheels, and you bake those. Those are every kid's dream. It's just like a snack, you know. Fantastic, because they have the sharp cheese taste and they have the crispy, flaky dough. And I think that's what our mothers did with the leftover dough. Oh, I'll stick some cheese in here and the kids will eat it. You know, but those are, and that's this same dough that you can use from the recipe, from the borekas. Fantastic. And then
never go wrong with cheese.
No, you can never go wrong with cheese. Yeah. We also make bizcochos, which are like a sweet, kind of sweet, but not really sweet, like for dunking in coffee. And that's like a little bit different dough, but it's like a baked little ring, and you know, for dunking in the Turkish coffee.
Someone asked if you could use that same dough from the borekas to make bimuelos.
No, oh no. Buñuelos are a yeast dough. It rises because it's like a donut. They're called buñuelos, or they call them also, my sister and I went to Turkey and we were so excited. We get off the boat on this little island, and they're selling them right there in the square. It's called lokumades, which is...
I've had those in Greece and they are my absolute favorite.
It's a deep fried donut and has honey syrup drizzled all over it, and that's what buñuelos are. But no, that's a yeast dough because it has to rise, and it goes poof when it hits the oil. It's like explosive and poofs up. And we also make on Passover. We make a kind of Passover buñuelo, which is obviously not yeast, but it's like crushed up matzah with egg. And those are deep fried, and that's sort of a Sephardic version of, there's the borekas. Matzah fry. That's the Sephardic version of matzah fry. It's deep fried. Hold on one sec. So here we go, out of the oven, the ones we made.
They look great. I'm very excited to try your recipe.
I hope you all do. I hope you all do. And don't get hung up on, you know, whether or not you can close the edges all perfectly. As long as they're sealed tight and, you know, you want them a little thicker so you have that little crunch, little extra crunch around the edge, they'll be great. They'll be just great.
Well, on behalf of Holocaust Museum LA, thank you, Linda, for sharing your time and expertise with us today. Before we sign off, I want to invite everyone to join us Thursday at 11 a.m. for our weekly Holocaust Survivor Talk. You can also join us on Tuesday, October 26th at 6 p.m. for our upcoming program, The Art of the Next Generation. A panel of artists will discuss how art can contribute to Holocaust awareness. And please follow our website or subscribe to our email list for more information about upcoming programs in our Sephardic and Mizrahi Stories series. You can find more information about our virtual events on our website, holocaustmuseumla.org. Also, a recording of this program will be available on Holocaust Museum LA's YouTube channel. Holocaust Museum LA brings you programs like today's at no charge. If you are enjoying our programs, please consider supporting our work by becoming a member. To learn more about our membership levels and benefits, visit holocaustmuseumla.org/membership. Thank you again to Linda Sendowski and to all of you for joining us today. Take care, and we hope to see you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.